These guys are a mess. Looks like I'm planting bindweed. Anybody know what these things are? Extra points if you let me know in the comments what these things are. I think we should have planted these a month ago.
I went to see David the Good. I bury old squirrels under leaves and wood. I planted my winter squash over chicken heads to overcome graze on in my tainted beds. Perhaps I like compost just a little too much, but all that blue Miracle-Gro was just a colorful grudge.
What a mess. So I have to do this before I can take the time to give you a garden tour, because today we're going to take a tour. Once I get, what a mess. Yeah, you just, there you go. Knock yourselves out, guys. That's gardening the permaculture way. Just plant every bit that looks like a root in that tangled mess. Cool. So the reason we're doing this tour today is it is 9 months since we moved here and we started building our gardens. And as you can see, there's a lot of life here. As a matter of fact, see all the stuff that's been dropped here on the ground? These are brassicas that were done and they get fed back to the soil surface. See this? It's no-till gardening. All you people, all you no-till people. This. See, we chop stuff up and we throw it on the ground and it's composting right in place. And I am gonna come through here and I'm gonna be planting one more thing at the base of one of these trellises. I showed you guys how to make these trellises in a video recently. And these are our summer vegetable trellises. So the mysterious vegetable that you have to name yourself has been planted here and here. And here I'm going to plant some of these, which are loofah gourds, not shown in the photo. These are not just the normal loofahs though. These are the loofah's eccentric relative that does not make good sponges. And I'm just planting them because, well, I feel bad for them, I guess. These are the seeds. This is the ridged gourd. It kind of looks like a zeppelin. It's an incredible looking plant. I really like them, but the first time I got these guys and planted them, I thought, hey, I'm gonna get some of my own sponges. And I didn't actually get sponges. At least not very good sponges. You know what happens with them is they have these really hard ridges and stuff on them, and they don't, the skins don't come off easily like they do on the regular ones. So I'm just gonna plant them, and the reason we will have these guys is as a vegetable, not for sponges. I'm just gonna put 4 at the base of this because they're super vigorous and that's more than enough. I could probably cover this entire thing with just 1. But, you know, what do they say? 1 for the crow, 1 for the weather, 1 for the baby to pull up, and then 1 that actually makes food for you. A few people ask me what these are. These are canna lilies. And canna lilies are pretty, they have edible flowers, but the reason I'm growing them primarily, other than the fact that they're beautiful, is that they make a good repeat chop and drop. They are just prolific, and I have a severe lack of organic material. The soil eats it. So what I do is I plant them around my fruit trees, and then as we get good rains and I think, hey, you know, this would be a good time to mulch down that tree. Let's trap in some of that moisture. I'll take some of the cannas, throw them on the ground to rot, and just go down the row It's machete gardening. If you let these guys keep growing, they'll make beautiful flowers, which I'll probably have some of them do at some point. They're so vigorous and kind of banana-like. They make these clumps down at the bottom. They just keep producing and producing and producing. It's like through the summer when you really are getting the rains and you need that mulch on the ground. Canna lilies are there for you. So I'm just opening up, putting some sunlight in there. If I want it to break down faster, I'll smash it up some more, like that. But I've just freed this apple tree up. And hey look, I got another apple tree. I should do that same thing. Throw some on the ground. I like how soft they are. They're super easy to cut. There we go. Free mulch, grown right in place. This is easy composting. Remember the easiest thing about composting? Easiest way to compost? Throw things on the ground. Throw it on the ground. So the ones that I feel like are coming out too far into the path, the ones that I feel like are too shady, shading stuff up too much, right down, and they'll grow right back. It's ridiculous how fast they grow. Ta-da! Now that pear tree's got a little mulch. This one here, I don't even know what it's doing. It's just hanging out by itself next to this chaya. You can see it was starting to shade over this chaya, Mexican tree spinach. So I cut that part of it off and I threw it on the ground there to mulch the chaya. What I could use is some more around this apple tree. So if I go along here, say, you know what? I could use some canna lilies over by this apple, because that apple's not getting enough mulch. Feel like we're a little shy on mulch materials. Look at this kohlrabi. That's kind of freaky. That's what happens when you leave a kohlrabi too long. Good. Now we can grow more mulch. This apple right here. Right here, incidentally, is where we planted our first round of yard-long beans from the video where I showed you guys how I made these cattle panel trellises with the clever little bottoms that stick into the ground and don't go away. This area right here, you can see it's starting to be taken over by these crazy Everglades tomatoes. I mean, I don't even know if my mulch will make it all the way to the ground. If I throw these cannas in here, will they make it? I don't know. We're surrounded by tomatoes. There are ridiculous amounts of tomatoes in there. See them all? They just keep coming and coming and coming and coming. They don't mind the heat. They're almost like a wild tomato, and they're in the shade down there underneath this. If I dig around down here, I can come out with lots of tomatoes. I'm thinking about making tomato jam, like a savory tomato jam, because we're getting so many of these Everglades tomatoes. We could pick probably a gallon of these every day right now. I know my kids come out here and eat a lot of them, and they're such a joy to have so many very flavorful, explosive, brilliant colored, delicious tomatoes that you don't have to work for. I mean, it's not even worth trying to stake them. You just let them run. As a matter of fact, come around here and see how they're running over here. This is nuts. You can see where they started in the middle, where the leaves are a little more yellow. That's where they were first planted. And they kind of have crawled out from the middle, and now they're coming back and recolonizing the area that they first left. They just keep going and going and producing. And I need a basket to do this. I'm very glad that when I designed this grocery row system, that we designed it with these 3-foot wide pathways, because the tomatoes in particular are eating the space. It's getting thinner and thinner, and I have to come by here and drag these back and stick them in the beds. At some point, I might even have to just start sticking stakes in the ground here and turning them back or pruning them, because I've just never had tomatoes grow like this before. These are monsters. Always got to remember to bring a basket in the garden now. Let's see if that massive scary kohlrabi is still any good. Let's go look at the eggplant. Down here, underneath these rampant, wild, incredible, edible Everglades tomatoes, which I'm going to pick now, because now that I'm putting the branches aside, I see more and more. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. We have these beautiful eggplant. This one looks like it's getting chewed a little bit by something. That's how you know it's good to eat. These guys, it's the first time we've grown them before. They're a very delicious white eggplant. They're very pretty. I like them a lot. And they just have a very nice, delicate and nutty flavor to them. It's very satisfying. Very good eggplant flavor, and they don't seem to have, the skins are just not as tough. I don't like the skins on the standard purple ones all that much. These guys, you don't even notice that they have the skins on. It is ridiculous. This is what we need children for. I'll send the child labor out here to pick a gallon of these things tonight. Just keep showing up. This is insane. I think we planted about, I don't know, 12 or 15 or something scattered around the gardens, and they're quickly becoming the dominant species. I'm curious to see how well they do going through the summer. You know, are they gonna just sail all the way through? Oh my gosh, they're everywhere. As we come through here, you can see where we cut out the old broccoli, and sometimes broccoli will come back and rehead, but it's been in the 90s and it doesn't like it. So what I do is I either cut them up and throw them onto the beds, or I feed them to the chickens, and I often do both. But these guys here, I'm going to mulch this amazing giant cayenne pepper here. Let's give it some broccoli mulch. There's a head that was no good that I threw on the ground earlier. Let's take that hard work that broccoli did. We got what we need out of it already. We'll compost the rest. I like this method of, you know, let's just use in the garden what we have in the garden and drop it back down on the surface, rather than having to drag it out to a compost pile. Rachel, what is that thing? Did you plant that? Oh my gosh. I don't want to touch it. That is nasty. Oh my gosh. Did you put that in there? disgusting. I think our seed package is mixed up or something. Ugh. The summer vegetables are starting to come in here, like these amazing jalapenos. And the way I designed this grocery row garden, they almost jump right into your hand. The way I designed this grocery row garden is to be just a constant rotating garden where, hey, here's the end of spring right there. The end of spring goes right into summer, and anytime there's a gap in the system, we fill it in. There's berries in the middle here. There's these peppers right here. So I'll take out my fall stuff, chop it into bits, feed it to the summer stuff. So the soil is continuously building. And as the system grows, you know, we do little bits of cover crop in between. Like I showed you with planting those beans. You know what? We should go look at those beans. So there's our chase tree. And okra time. Did you see my understory? Underneath this okra are these southern peas, which you saw me crinkling into the ground previously. They're all coming up. These were just a bag of dry beans from the store. The easy, cheap way to put in a summer cover crop. I highly, highly recommend black-eyed peas. Stick those in and they'll just cover the ground, and that gives you life. You get those root exudates going on. You get the sugars, you get the nitrogen fixation, and when you're really short on organic matter, it's also putting all that root down into the ground. Look at these beautiful peppers. I mean, I think these peppers are getting bigger by the day. Look at how many are on here. I think these are a Thai long pepper variety. If not, they're another cayenne variant. I planted so many different varieties, I have no idea what they are, which is the fun way to garden. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Now, the great thing about gardening is we've got all different personality types on it. You've got engineer types like Mel Bartholomew with his square foot gardening, and you've got people that love to plan and build and experiment. You've got people that are just anarchists who love to throw things out and see what happens. You know what, since I'm over here, speaking about covering the ground, see these right here? Sweet potatoes are starting to run. And I want more sweet potatoes elsewhere. So what I'm gonna do is take a few of these as they run towards the beds and stick them elsewhere. Look, if they run out into the path, they become planting material. We gotta fill the gaps. This is one of those fantastic summer crops. Our potatoes are out, so it's time for sweet potatoes. We've got all these different types of gardeners. You got people that really love to make systems, build complicated things. This is weird. People that have like pink eggs in their gardens, like their kids. It's weird. And you got people that are experimenters. You got anarchist type people throwing things all over the place. I like to just scatter the seeds and see what happens. But I have enough engineering ability and observational ability to build what looks like a chaotic system that actually has a lot of planning built into it. It's just my level of planning from day to day isn't like, well, I'm gonna go sketch this thing out and see where, you know, how this is gonna go and how this is gonna go. No, what I do is I say, okay, I want a mixture of annuals and perennials. I want roots, I want flowers, I want insect attractors, I want to keep the ground covered, I want regular amounts of food coming into the house, and I don't want gaps. So as the fall stuff comes out, like these mustards, mustard goes down, sweet potato goes in, I've got ground cover, and I've got a staple. You can live on sweet potatoes. And we're making stuff happen. It's just a matter of going through and saying, hey, there's a hole. What can I fill that hole with? That soil looks way different than when we first moved in here. Love that biochar, that organic material, a little bit of clay mixed in. Lots of life. Feels good. So right now I'm probably planting in just a minute here in these gaps what will end up being probably something like 20 pounds of sweet potatoes in the fall. So these are tomatillos, also known as Mexican husk tomatoes. Their bugs have been getting into a lot of them. We got a decent amount of them, but lately we've been seeing a lot more bug damage, so I keep peeling them up and going, hey, do we have a tomatillo? Maybe not. So I'm thinking that they're not completely happy here. It's funny because they're making lots of little tomatillos, but we're not actually getting a ton of great ones. There's a good one. I'll tell you though, they are a very delicious and worth growing crop. Look at that, there's the culprit right there. Looks like chicken food to me. So I planted these tomatillos all down here, and we've been getting them as we can. Some of the plants decided they just didn't want to have nice looking tomatillos at all. They got all kind of weird and wrinkly. Got no idea why. This is our first successful year growing them, and I was talking with Scott Head when he was here, and he was saying he hadn't had very much luck with them. And how did I have so much luck? I said, I don't know. It just so happened that we stuck them in the ground and enough of them grew that we got tomatillos. But they seem to be actually much more of a pest magnet than the tomatoes have been. You can see how many of them are laying on the ground like this. They should be beautiful like that. But instead there's a lot of hollow ones, a lot of damaged ones that get dropped off of the vines. But I'm not that worried. They'll cycle out of here, we'll get something else in. We've got gingers coming up right here. Right in between, I stuck gingers around the base of this plum, and then I forgot that I had done that, and I planted peppers basically almost on top of the gingers, which is doing fine. It's no big deal. These tomatillos here are really pretty lousy looking. I don't know what's going on. Got holes in them. I still love them. That one's good. It's pretty. Some of them are just getting chewed. I think really the trick is to figure out which plants will continuously do well for you, which plants are worth doing underneath the insect pressure and everything without spraying, which varieties are going to sail through, and what can you do to add life to the gardens that will, you know, make them do better year over year. Like this one here, this Tomatillo plant right here, this is pathetic. It's not really making very many good ones here. So maybe that's a bad seed, I don't know. So what I'm gonna do is chop it up and feed it. Might be a couple good ones on there. Chop it up and we'll feed it. It's not great, they're pretty small. We'll feed it to this ginger right here. So now the ginger gets the hard work of that Tomatillo, and it will grow on through the season. And the ginger is a perennial. There's a Tomatillo coming from the other side. And the ginger will get harvested on a different cycle. There's a good looking one. It's just here and there. Some of them look terrible, some of them are producing. Who knows? Maybe we'll save seeds from the ones that are the last survivors in the garden, and that will be next year's. As you go down this row, you can see the hot peppers here are starting to become overstory at this point. Eventually they're going to be eclipsed by these cassava, which are coming up in the beds. There's an understory here of some sort of a pumpkin. I don't know what it is. It's probably a Seminole pumpkin, which is a really bad idea to plant in these little rows. Down in here, we've also got an understory of tomatoes. And these tomatoes should have been staked earlier in the year, but they weren't. We just stuck seedlings everywhere. This one was gonna go inside and sit on the counter. It's pretty close to being ready. It's good enough. I wanna get them before the slugs do, because they will. Down here, I made these little pockets in the mulch where there were gaps and planted in okras. So these little okra are gonna run through the summer because they like the heat. And hey, there's pokeweed that's volunteered here. So let's feed the pokeweed to the okra. There's a little nest of pokeweed to get that okra started. I love pokeweed because you can just chop it and drop it again and again. Hiding in here, more tomatoes. There's a spoiled one back here that will feed next year's tomatoes. It'll probably volunteer. Sometimes when they lay on the ground like this, you get that sort of thing. They get eaten, which is why it's better. Look at it, looks good. Look, it's perfect for YouTube. You won't believe how well my tomatoes grew. Oh my gosh, oh my goodness. Well, can't get them all. But we started them from seed, and remember we started like 600 seedlings. We didn't get around to staking all of them, we just stuck them in the ground. Well, we take what we can. That one's not so bad. It's a little funky looking because it was crushed up against the others. It's got a little bug chew on the bottom. That gets cut out and these get sauteed for breakfast. They are so good. You chop up chunks of like not quite ripe tomatoes. Awesome. This is a little plum right here. And then this is Tithonia diversifolia, the Mexican sunflower, which is a really, really good chop and drop. But it will get gigantic. So what we do is we cut it now and again and knock it down to feed the soil. We want this happening all the time. We want lots and lots of stuff on the ground, rotting down, feeding the ground, continuously keeping that root life alive. And you can see how like green and happy these sweet potatoes are down here. I keep cutting pieces of them off and planting them elsewhere, but they're doing fine. Pomegranate's doing good. And then down here, we have a really ugly tomatillo. Why is this tomatillo so ugly? No idea. I don't like it. It's getting fed to other stuff. So when you see something like that, hey, it's not happy? All right, fine, I don't mind. Some more little okras right there. It's fed to the ground. There, stay. Coming around the other side here. This one has like, I don't know what the nutrient deficiency or virus or what is going on with this thing. Are there good tomatillos on here? Some. It does not look great. But honestly, I have so many of these things. There. I'll feed the soil. Doesn't matter. They get in my way, I cut them up. It doesn't matter. They feed the ground. These are some of the later cabbages. These are the ones we planted in the spring. Really lovely. It's a nice cabbage. It's not huge, but it's good. And then the rest of these leaves, I can either leave them in the bed, or sometimes I just throw them in the path, and then come back along through the path and gather this stuff up and take it over to the chickens to snack on. They love it. They love the brassicas. It's good. We've been getting blackberries off of these blackberries. It's the first year, so they're not super productive. These are going to be the canes that fruit for next year. But even just being first year, I've been surprised with how many nice little ones we've gotten. In between here, you can see there's some little beans coming up in the ground. Those beans are bush beans. I planted them wider because I actually want to harvest those. Those aren't just cover crop. They're there because I want to get bush beans. And I know it's a little late in the season. We'll see how it does. Here's a little stevia at the base of this blueberry. It's a rabbit eye blueberry and stevia. This is a very nice sweet form of stevia I got from my friend Elizabeth, who has the Pretty Gardens. She gave me some divisions off of hers. This persimmon will be overstory. This thing's not going to be fruiting for multiple years, but it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to fit in here. It's going to provide a little shade so we can have a little bit of a microclimate beneath it later in the year. Some of these collards, even though they look terrible, I'm leaving them here to get chewed up because I've been seeing the wasps coming by and chewing and taking caterpillars off of them. If I can keep those wasps coming into my garden, I don't mind leaving a little bit of stuff for them to be hunting on. I want to leave little wasp hunting grounds as we go. These raspberries, these are the canes from before. These are the old canes. We need to just cut them and drop them. But they've produced quite a few little raspberries, which is also surprising because, you know, they're the first year. But I like them. This variety is called Heritage. It has a very nice raspberry flavor. And it's been productive. There's a little sad one. That one's not quite ready. I think the kids got the good ones already. They've been good. And then there's chaya in between them. See these beautiful cannas? This is a different variety of canna. It's not nearly so vigorous as those red ones. We've got the cannas and the zinnias, and then behind it, this chase tree, the vitex. Just beautiful. We like it for the pollinators. You see we've got bees in here. Bees and butterflies come to it. It's beautiful, makes a nice tea. And then down at the base of it, we've got our marigolds. They're just beautiful. I had this idea of let's put some bright colors together in this corner. Like we'll just make the end of this row these beautiful colors. You know, the orange and the purple together in particular are really vibrant. So a little understory there. And then back here we got a little catnip. And that catnip, it's actually blooming too. So the catnip is going to bring in pollinators as well. And then right next to it, we've got the asparagus. And some of these asparagus are making fruits, so we'll have to see if we could start some from seed. That would be interesting. Understory over here on this last row. This is the ground cover. So we've got a tomato understory, or shrub layer here with tomatoes. We've been getting tomatoes out of here. And the bugs have been getting some tomatoes too. It's too bad. No! My idea was, hey, let's tie these things up onto the little trees, but I didn't get to it in time. So, you guys see everything on YouTube. Now the great thing is, if I just take these guys right here, I could save seeds from them. They're horrible. Instead of wasting a good tomato, I could take these carbon tomatoes, ferment the seeds, and save them for next year, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put them here in the path so I remember, and we'll use those so there's no waste. But even if we took those and fed them to the chickens, it wouldn't really be a waste either. We've got tons of food. It's ridiculous. Ground cover layer here is strawberries. Got a little bit of ginger right here. Blueberry. And then here's a sweet potato I stuck in. We've got a little bit of broccoli coming back. Surprisingly, this broccoli has not given up yet. More zinnias, more marigolds. These are surrounding this little fig tree right here. I don't know if this fig is going to make figs this year, but I do know it had a really low growth. Like, it branches really close to the ground, and I liked that. And it's been putting on growth. I mean, there's a couple of feet of growth on this thing. It likes it. We threw ashes around it. It's pretty happy. So there's that, and we've got some amaranths. Gooseberry is starting to grow here. The amaranths are getting chewed up by something. I think there's a leaf beetle that eats them. I don't see one right now, but something's been chewing the living daylights out of them. I don't know what it is. It's not that important. I could still cut them and eat them. Down below here, we've got some cantaloupe. I just stuck in seeds. I like to do that thing where I just wander around with seeds in my pocket. So we've got cantaloupes coming in right here. The cantaloupes are creeping. We got a little bit of strawberries too. It's not the prettiest strawberry, but it's a strawberry. What are these? What are these things? Rachel, what are these?
That's.
They look like.
It's a Brazilian cucumber. A Brazilian cucumber.
These are Brazilian cucumbers?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. They look a
No,
lot.
it's a Brazilian cucumber. Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's a bush cucumber?
That's just, it's the variety. That's how they are.
Okay. They're big.
Yeah. And I mean,
I don't know. There's something about them.
Things that produce.
Yeah, it produces a lot.
Lots of.
Brazilian cucumber. I don't know. Look at that peach. You see the shape of that peach? That's the shape you want for a peach. Look at down here. See how it's got that nice, it's an open center right near the ground, and it's growing out sideways. That's exactly how you want it. Those 3 branches there, it's really good. Down here I thought I'd planted a blackberry, but this looks like a wild blackberry because it's covered with thorns. But I'm thinking of just sticking it on a stake and tying it up and seeing what it makes. Maybe it'll make good fruits, I don't know. Hickory King dent corn. This is an old variety. I absolutely love it. I love corn. Makes great big ears. It usually just makes 1 ear per plant. Some of them don't make any ears at all. Like, if they don't get a lot of fertility and running right at the beginning. Sometimes you get some of these stalks I've seen in here. Let's see if I can find one. They make a bloom at the top. Here's one. They make a bloom at the top, but I don't see any ears on it at all. And if it hasn't started making ears at this point, I don't think it's going to make any ears, but at least it's donating pollen to the other ones. Look at these. Aren't these cool? See these great big ears in here? These guys are going to get big, big, big. They'll make kernels that are like the size of your thumbnail. Here, I'll show you something. The benefits of not having any pesticides. There's a little cool little leaf hopper right here. These guys don't really cause any damage. I like them. They don't bother me. But down here, we've got orb weavers. And a little orb weaver spider in between. Over here we've got a dead leaf hopper in an abandoned spider web. I like it. I like it. Like the evidence of life. There's so many different bits and pieces happening in here. We've got just life everywhere. If you don't kill it. I mean, at night there's little toads and frogs hopping around in the garden. Spiders. There's ladybugs. There's aphids. There's assassin bugs. I walked through here and I had a praying mantis climbing up my shirt. I didn't buy praying mantises to put in here. I just planted everything and God sent them. It's marvelous. I'm so happy with the corn. Let's look at this little bit here before it gets dark. We've got some sort of Brazilian cucumbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Brazilian cucumbers are growing in between the amazing dud onions. We planted these bunching onions. They looked really pretty, but I didn't really use them that much. We used some of them, but I think we way overplanted. This is one of my younger son's beds. He started his own transplants and planted them in here. And he took a few of my transplants too, some of my zinnias and dills. And he's growing. He started all of the tomato transplants when I was starting mine. He picked out a variety, planted it, and is growing them. He comes out and picks them, gets the bugs off them, and he's doing a great job. He feeds them, he breaks up eggshells and he throws them on the ground around for calcium. I'm very proud of him. He's a natural little gardener. These are some of the Everglades tomatoes which my wife tied up, so these look a little more under control. I don't know how long this will last. This is the Terra Preta bed. Now, the broccoli does not like this weather. So, it just needs to get fed back into this bed. But we are getting some magnificently lovely looking tomatoes in here. Ah, here we go. There's a carbon tomato. Isn't that cool? They're so wicked weird looking. I mean, the surprising thing to me is that we're getting any tomatoes. If I told you about my experiments with tomatoes in Florida, and then you guys saw what I did in the tropics, the fight to grow tomatoes, it's insane. They don't like the heat, they don't like the bugs. I'm just excited that we're getting any tomatoes. This is weird. I like how these are all tied on here. This is so strange. Looks like they need some more food. But look at these broccoli. Broccoli's just done. It's organic. It's sustainable. It's food for plants. Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose. Again, it's the remarkable thing, I think, is that after 9 months of being here, that it looks this good. This is a serious amount of work and soil amendments and experimentation. We're learning a lot, and next year is going to be even better. These are the last chance pole beans here. There are a lot of pole beans on here. We're going to have to send kids out to pick them too. We've been getting beans and beans and beans and beans. This is the trellis to make you jealous system here that they're tied on. It's really nice for the beans. They like it. For some reason, my cucumbers decided they just didn't want to climb much. So Rachel has been like trying to train them up, and they they just like to throw themselves on the ground. And I mean, I would get them up here and they would turn around and throw themselves down again. Like I try to tie them up on the strings. They don't like the strings. I think they may be more suited to some cattle panels or something like that. I don't know. I would go like this. Here, cucumber, climb this thing. And then a couple of cucumbers would get on it. And next thing you know that they've thrown themselves on the ground again. Oh my gosh, it's a giant pickle. This is another thing that surprised me this year is the cucumbers have been chewed up by some pests. You can see there's little dots on the leaves. There's a little bit of white mold coming in now because it's been really wet and humid. I mean, right now as I'm talking to you, the humidity is unbelievable. It's the evening, it's after 7 o'clock, and the air is dead still. And I'd say it was probably 90 degrees until just maybe a few minutes ago. So the self-watering bucket garden has worked well. I threw a little bit of BT down in there to knock the mosquitoes out. That seems to have done it. And it definitely does not need any water. And it looks like we also ended up with Everglades tomatoes in here. I had no idea what we planted, but they're monsters. They didn't even need this care, but we gave them care. This area right here, my little daughter planted this. She put some beans in here, and then I planted this one right here with okra. We're getting into these summer crops. And so, you know, you look at, this is how bad the soil looked to begin with. I mean, this bed has not been amended. It's just horrible. It's like construction trash, dirt. Like after an area's been plowed up for construction. Okay, so we've got here our yard long beans, which are starting to pick up aphids, as they sometimes do. Some of these here I'm saving for seed. The ones that seem to be the toughest and have the least amount of aphids on them, like these guys right here, these guys are going to be seed. And I like these beans. It's interesting because some of these are really dark green and some of these are really pale. So these pale ones, which were in the same package, I just planted a package of them. These really pale beans are very easy to spot. I like this. This is beneficial to me. These guys blend right in with the vines, but these almost white ones don't. So I'm gonna save these, and we should, because beans are an inbreeder, we should get this same thing again this next year, and then we'll have almost all these pale green to white bean pods. I like that. So those get saved. A little bit of variation in the garden. One more thing I want you guys to see before we wrap up this tour, and that is this terrifying, massive snake gourd. Look at that. That is a vegetable. You peel off that skin and you chop the inside up and cook it, and it is very nice. It's kind of like a spongy, nutty flavor, and it soaks up whatever you cook it in. So you cook it in curry, it soaks up the curry. You cook it in spaghetti sauce, it soaks up the spaghetti sauce. It's a very nice fill, a very pleasant texture, and it just looks cool. It's like a big weird club. There's a ton more out there that I could have picked, but I mean, just picking this in a few minutes, and I was talking way too much in between, and I still picked all of this produce. It's ridiculous. I mean, we didn't even get started on those Everglades tomatoes, but super productive. If I can grow a garden in this terrible, terrible soil that we started with here down in South Alabama, you can grow a garden. It's concerted effort over time. It's paying attention. It's trying to grow the things that work and test different things and test your soil and test varieties and plant and plant and plant and spend a little bit of time every day. A little bit of time every day and build. Mix your polycultures together. Get your perennials, your annuals. Find out what your neighbors are growing. What grew really well for them? Plant that. If it grows really easily in your area for somebody else, it'll probably grow really easily for you. Say, hey, what did you plant that gave you so much that you wished you'd never planted it? That's what you want. Plant those things. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Be sure to like and subscribe. Catch me on the web at thesurvivalgardener.com, where I write posts all the time. You can also check out the Compost Your Enemies t-shirts. I'll put a link below this video. And hey, go plant a garden. What are you waiting for? Might be a little hot for summer, but fall is right around the corner. Catch you next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green. That's 18 pounds.
I'm driving with the top down, baby. Rain won't stop me. I'm high on black coffee, baby. Your blues won't rock me. I'm planting on the seed cone, baby. Some crows can't stop me. I'm cranking up the bass and baby, and you can't drop me. Ooh, sugar pie. Ooh, sugar pie.
What if that was my actual arm? Wait a minute, what if my arm was gone and then I just had this arm that was like a snake gourd? What if I could hide my little baby hand in here, like a little nub hand, and the nub hand like holds the, like, hi, I'm David the Good. I have this weird arm. This is kind of dumb. I don't think James Pre-Alien would do that. I'm sorry I even brought it up. I don't know what I was thinking.